Hello everyone, welcome to our GRE series. I'm Eli Andy, a GRE instructor here at the International Scholars Program. Today we'll be looking at complex text completion questions. So maybe we can just start by considering what makes these questions complex. What are some of the text completion questions that many people consider complex? Now, the answer, of course, may vary, but there are a few common things that stand out. For example, many people will consider text completion questions with lengthy or multiple sentences as complex. As with the sentence equivalence questions, text completion questions can be as short as one sentence in length, but some are as long as 4 sentences in length. And for many test takers, the more the sentences, the more complex the question becomes. Then we also have text completion questions with compound sentences. Those are questions with maybe multiple subjects and also questions with multiple predicates. So many students also consider such questions complex. Then of course, many would agree that questions with hard vocabulary or answer choices with unfamiliar words are also part of the complex text completion questions. So unfamiliar words. Text completion questions can have one blank, some have double blanks, and there are also some with triple blanks. So just like in the case of sentences, many consider the number of blanks as directly proportional to the difficulty of the question or the complexity of the question. So that means, for example, that triple blanks questions are considered complex by many. The good news is that these questions usually seem complex at first glance, but once you are prepared for the GRE, once you understand the skills, the foundational skills, for example, quant and verbal, and once you understand how the GRE sets up its questions, then you'll be better at these questions, and they will not, of course, seem as complex as they did before your preparation. So at the International Scholars Program, we have different strategies for approaching these questions. For example, one strategy is to break down the question. Break down a compound or a lengthy sentence, for example. The breakdown will help you to understand the meaning of the question, the meaning of the sentence, and also to attack it bit by bit. Then when you are dealing with the triple blank or double blank questions, you also need to resist the temptation to look at everything at once. So just like breaking down the multiple sentences into short bits that you can handle, you also need to attack the triple blank or double blank questions one blank at a time. So just focus on one blank at a time, and the question will be more manageable rather than looking at the maybe 4 lines or 3 blanks all at once. Then again, there may be some details that do not really add to the meaning or contribute to the meaning of the question. For example, you may be reading a text completion question with a foreign name, maybe the name of a place or the name of a person that is foreign sounding, and maybe you don't know how to read it correctly. That is not something that should bother you, because it does not contribute to the meaning of the sentence, which is what you need to get to answer the question correctly. So let's look at a few examples of these complex text completion questions and how you can use these strategies to tackle them. Okay, here's the first one. An eye for seemingly blank details can make all the difference in marketing a product. Color, for example, can have blank but powerful effects on a person's mood if not used carefully. Yellow runs the risk of being overpowering, but its undeniably eye-catching intensity can be an effective tool for a blank businessman. Harry N. Allen, who first brought the taxi cab to the United States, painted his cars yellow for precisely this reason. So this one, as you can see, it's a bit complex. We have nearly 5 lines and we have 3 blanks. So let's look at it again. An eye for seemingly blank details can make all the difference in marketing a product. So up to that point, you really can't tell which way the question is heading. You cannot pinpoint what the blank should be. So let's continue. Color, for example, can have a dust but powerful effects on a person's mood if not used carefully. Yellow runs the risk of being overpowering, but its undeniably eye-catching intensity can be an effective tool for dust businessman. Okay, so looking at the third sentence from yellow, you get a hint of what we should be having for the third blank. So yellow is described as overpowering. Intense and effective. You get that sense. Yes, it runs the risk of being overpowering, but it is eye-catching, which is something that makes sense for a marketer. Remember, we are talking about color with respect to marketing of products. So it is eye-catching, that's a positive thing. And also yellow is described as being effective. And that means that for the third blank, which this sentence is leading up to, we need something positive. And this something positive is being used to describe a businessman who would use yellow to market their product. That's a clever businessman. Wouldn't you agree? So looking at the answer choices for this third blank, you can see that G is a good fit for this blank. Sagacious, meaning clever. Okay, so we have yellow runs the risk of being overpowering, but its undeniably eye-catching intensity can be an effective tool for a sagacious businessman. Alan, who first brought the taxi cab to the United States, painted his cars yellow for precisely this reason. I hope you can see how G makes sense for the third blank. So let's look at the other blanks. Okay, let's go to blank 2. Color, for example, can have blank but powerful effects on a person's mood if not used carefully. So color can be good. That is the sense we are getting in this sentence. Color can be a good thing when marketing a product, but you should be careful. You should be careful. Look at this bit. And that means if you are not careful, maybe something unexpected can happen. Maybe you won't get the desired result. So again, with that sense, we have color, for example, can have unexpected but powerful effects on a person's mood if not used carefully. And with that understanding for blank 2, you can see that which choice would make sense. So if you picked D, that is right. Inadvertent. So we read, color, for example, can have inadvertent but powerful effects on a person's mood if not used carefully. Then we go to the first blank. An eye for seemingly dash details can make all the difference in marketing a product. Looking at the subsequent sentences, you can see that it's easy to overlook color when marketing a product. So it's something you might consider as a minor detail, a trifling detail. And that's our answer for blank 1. So an eye for seemingly trifling details can make all the difference in marketing a product. So as you can see, this question looks complex at first glance. But when you break it down and attack it bit by bit, you automatically improve your understanding, and that increases your chances of picking the right answers, as we've done.
You are watching Success with Bob Mwiti Show, presented to you by the International Scholars Program. The International Scholars Program is an award-winning international education financing scheme that helps bright students to pursue graduate studies abroad regardless of their financial background. You can find our programs by going to www.internationalscholarsprogram.com. The International Scholars Program, empowering dreams.
Let's look at another example. A notorious feature of Arendt's political theory is her assertion that strictly political debate, deliberation, and concerted action blank social and economic issues. Many of Arendt's critics have objected to this asocial understanding of the proper content of politics. Sheldon Wallen and Ralph Ellison among them. Both thinkers, however, despite their dash of Arendt's, dash her in distinguishing between conceptions of politics based on rulership and those based on action in concert. Lengthy reading. But again, you just need to break it down to pick the right choices for the blanks. This one again is an example of a complex text completion question. We have slightly more than 5 lines and we have 3 blanks. So let's look at it again and see how we can attack it one blank at a time. A notorious feature of Arendt's political theory is her assertion that strictly political debate, deliberation, and concerted action dash social and economic issues. That is the first sentence, and it does not help us much in figuring out what we should have for the first blank. So let's continue reading. Many of Arendt's critics have objected to this asocial understanding of the proper content of politics. And we are given some examples. Now, this second sentence is a bit helpful. Many of Arendt's critics have objected to this asocial understanding of the proper content of politics. This bit here is very telling. This phrase here, this asocial understanding of the proper content of politics. You get the sense that Arendt's theory on political debate excludes some aspects that it ought to include, at least according to Sheldon Wallin and Ralph Ellison, among others, from this bit. So at least according to these people, Arendt's excludes some things. We get that from a social understanding. An understanding that excludes some things that it ought to include. And with that, we can see that choice B makes a good answer for blank 1. And so we get a notorious feature of Arendt's political theory is her assertion that strictly political debate, deliberation, and concerted action exclude social and economic issues. Many of Arendt's critics have objected to this asocial understanding of the proper content of politics, Sheldon Wallin and Ralph Ellison among them. Both thinkers, however, despite their dash of Arendt's, dash her in distinguishing between conceptions of politics based on rulership and those based on action in concert. Okay, so these people don't agree with Arendt's political theory. So how do they view Arendt's and her political theory? Do they appraise Arendt's? Do they venerate her? Or do they criticize her? You can see that choice F is a good one for the second blank because, like we have just said, in fact, we have a further pointer to the answer here. That these two people are part of Arendt's critics. So you get the idea that we can have F for blank 2 and read, both thinkers, however, despite their criticism of Arendt's, thus are in distinguishing between conceptions of politics based on rulership and those based on action in concert. So we have blank 1, we have blank 2. Let's look at blank 3. Now, breaking this down, we have this bit here, despite their criticism. So both thinkers, however, despite their criticisms of Arendt's, they do something. So this bit indicates a contrast or a shift, which means criticism is a negative word here, but because of the contrast or shift, we expect something positive. So on one hand, they criticize her for something, but on the other hand, they don't criticize her. So if they don't criticize her, then it means they concur with. So that is the answer for the third blank. So we read, a notorious feature of Arendt's political theory is her assertion that strictly political debate, deliberation, and concerted action exclude social and economic issues. Many of Arendt's critics have objected to this asocial understanding of the proper content of politics, Sheldon Wallin and Ralph Ellison among them. Both thinkers, however, despite their criticism of Arendt's, concur with her in distinguishing between conceptions of politics based on rulership and those based on action in concert. So you can see how breaking down these complex questions and tackling them one blank at a time really helps to simplify them. And that means with the right strategies, we really don't need to consider these questions as complex. If you want to learn more on breaking down complex questions and generally improving your GRE score, I welcome you to join the International Scholars Program, where we have a GRE training program that will help you in this part of the GRE and also in the other parts, so that you may ace the test. So that is all for today. Bye and welcome next time.